Well, we did drugs, we did sex. We're not going to do rock and roll next. We're actually going to talk knotweed because people who don't control Japanese knotweed in their gardens could now be in trouble with the police, apparently. The plant is so vigorous it can damage roads, pavements and even buildings. And Home Office guidance now specifically names the plant as a serious problem that new laws could help tackle. Helen Yem writes the column Thorny Problems in the Telegraph gardening section. Mike Clough is the owner of Japanese Knotweed Solutions, and both join us on the line. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Mike Clough, what is changing such that people need to be on the case a bit more with Japanese knotweed?
There's now new laws that have been reformed regarding antisocial behaviour, which means that if you continually ignore somebody's requests for you to get rid of an invasive species on your land, you could actually have a fine raised and levied against you. I'm assuming it's going to be if you continually ignore requests to deal with an invasive species. I don't think it's going to be a little piece of Japanese knotweed at the bottom of your garden. You're suddenly going to get a bill through the post, but the law has changed.
And the significant thing, of course, about Japanese knotweed, Helen Yem, is that it is so difficult to get rid of.
It is. It takes a long time. I do think this thing has been whipped up to a frenzy a bit, but it does take, with herbicides, it takes up to 5 years if it's a really bad infestation. And I can imagine that building contractors wanting to develop a piece of land that's got knotweed are faced with a really nasty problem. They haven't got 5 years. And so hitherto they've resorted to removing the soil with all the bits of root in it, and that could be 3 metres of soil. It's a complicated issue, but I do think it's been whipped up and is playing on people's fear rather too much. And I think it's sad to have legislation that puts one neighbour against another in this way, and is a sad reflection on our times, really.
In a way, though, I suppose it's the plant itself, but we blame the Victorians for its introduction, don't we?
Yes, it was introduced into Europe by a Dutch botanist who then sold it to Kew, and then Kew started selling it on. And by the 1870s, William Robinson, the father of English gardening, was promoting it as a good garden plant. But by 10 years later, it was perceived as a bit of a nuisance because in our soil, as opposed to sort of bad volcanic ash, which is where it was found in Japan, it grew rather more rampantly. And so by the early 1900s, it was regarded as a bit of a pest. And so it went on.
Now, Mike Clough, you've obviously made a business out of, the very name of your business, Japanese Knotweed Solutions. It is a problem and people are worried about it. But you've also, I know, concerned about so much about what people might do in response to this, that you've set up a trade body. That's
right. There are an awful lot of new businesses coming into the market who know absolutely nothing about plants. My background is horticultural, and I agree with the previous speaker that very much my message is that at the end of the day, Japanese knotweed is a plant. It's not a triffid. It's not a demon from outer space. It can be dealt with, and that's the message that we wish to get over with the trade body INSA, which is the Invasive Non-Native Specialists Association. We're saying to people, you must go to somebody who knows how to deal with these plants.
Because what happens if they go somewhere else?
Well, quite often people are being conned into removing plants that aren't even Japanese knotweed. We had a case recently where somebody had been quoted £45,000 to remove what they said was Japanese knotweed, and when we went out, it was actually sycamore. This is the sort of situation that you're going to get when somebody comes into the market who doesn't know anything about plants. Right.
So the answer, Helen Yem, if you want to get rid of Japanese knotweed, what do you do?
Sadly, you have to let it grow to its full height, and then you can spray it with a glyphosate herbicide and inject the hollow stems with the weed killer, and gradually you will weaken the plant because the weed killer travels down to the roots and eventually kills the roots. But it takes more than one application, and you do need full leaf coverage. You have to actually have the leaves.
We'll leave it there. Helen Yem, Mike Clough, thank you.